I think we've waited long enough for the latecomers. What do you think? All right, everyone. You probably figured out you're at BrisJS, and congratulations, you're in the right place. Thank you very much for coming. It's good to see everyone here. This is the first one for the year, which is exciting because we've got plenty more to get on with this year. So I'm going to go through my usual preamble, and the first one being, if you cannot make it for whatever reason, but you have previously RSVP'd to these things, it's super important to make sure you do this as early as you can. That means that I don't order 27 pizzas, or I order slightly less, or something like that. And that helps out just to avoid waste, honestly. We want to be able to do that. Also, logistics like putting out chairs and making sure that we can, handle the influx of people. So that's really important. And thanks for everyone who did do that. So if you're new here and you're not familiar with where the facilities are, just when you entered through the lift area there, you'll find the ladies and gents on that side over there. There's also cold water jugs at the back where the tables where the EST is as well. And there'll be soft drinks and beers in the break session in between after the first talk. So, very, very important. We are back in February 2018. That's what it says on my slide. We'll update that next time. So it's really, really important for us to know exactly what you want to hear. And if you want to be able to present, you should totally do that call for a presentation. Or I'm not sure how that works in the present tense instead of pretense. You should get in touch with us. You should hop on the GitHub issues. There's a really handy little microformat that's been injected from our BrisJS.org, so you can just go in and hit the I would like to talk, and it will go in and go straight to that create a new post on GitHub issues page as well. And hopefully we can set you up with a form for that in the future as well. But if you do that, just let us know what the kind of thing you'd like to talk about there. We can have a bit of back and forth and talk about it if you need some support there. If you've got everything worked out, you can just pop in your description there and tell us what it's going to be about. Let us know how long you'd like, what kind of month, and we'll make sure you can get a slot. That's a good example there of exactly what that looks like. You can go to our GitHub page, have a look at the issues. Everything's an issue, everything's open. There's various tags in there to know which month something's running, how long it's going to be, and whether or not it's confirmed for next month or not. That's how you can get a sneak peek if you can see under the hood there and see who's speaking for the next month. We also have plenty of different social networks there. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's really cool. You can get all these recordings. There's also a Facebook group, and there's the Twitter page. Hopefully you've all been there. You know where everything is. There's also BrisJS.org that will pull in bits of information from around the web, including meetup and our issues, for example. And we've got links there to be able to see a nice format of the job board that we do through GitHub as well. So if you're interested in that, there's an example of some of the past talks at BrisJS.org, so that's also been consumed. All great work by Ash there, consumed from various bits of data as well as YouTube, and pulls together the slides if you shared them, and all sorts of things like that. So we'd like to bring everything together so that you can go home, look at it on your own, at your own time and your own pace. Some of the upcoming stuff I like to mention all the time is we will have our social event, BrisJS Social. That date is not correct. So we will have to announce that through Twitter and hopefully Facebook as well. So Camp.js is coming up. I'm not going to say too much about that. Glenn?
A spoiler?
No, it's not a spoiler. You spoiled it on Twitter. Glenn Arrowsmith over there, lovely man, is going to tell you about Camp.js shortly. First, I'm just going to listers. So Josh Bird is going to be, that talk title was very long, so I had to truncate it. It's now just charting North Korean missiles in D3JS. I did really appreciate the very long title though. It's very impactful. You will not miss it. We'll be able to have a little intermission there. You can catch up, work with people, get to know each other, be nice, friendly. And then we're going to hear from Anna about 6 ways to an awesome API, which is sure to be cool. And then lightning talks. So we haven't done this for a while, so it's pretty cool, and hopefully you've all got something interesting you want to be able to say. So we've got a bunch of different volunteers I've heard around the place, but there's no official list. There is a little notepad and paper there. That's how technical this is. You just go there and just say, look, I'd like to say something, and put your name down, and we'll call it out, and grab yourself 5-10 minutes, something like that, and yep, it's right there. Everyone, you got it? Okay, cool. And you grab yourself a short amount of time just to either do a shout out about something, a library you've used, you like, something you've written, something you've worked on, questions to the audience, you never know. All sorts of things that you'd like to bring up with BrisJS, the floor is yours. And then, depending on how long that takes, it's probably about an 8:30 wrap up. Now, all of this is possible through our sponsors. So you're in Auto & General's meeting room facilities. They have all the equipment and the microphones and the things. It's very, very good. So thank you very much to Devin today, Dallas, who's supporting us. I don't know if he's hiding in the audience or if he's still working. So thank you very much for that. JDP. Yes. And then keep the applause going then if you like. Okay, and Connect, Anna and I work there, and we're sponsoring all your pizzas from Croston. So hopefully, we definitely won't go hungry. Let's make sure. So they should be arriving, and we eagerly anticipate those to arrive. So yeah, let's actually before we start, I'm going to hand over to Glenn so that he can get his message across about this thing, which we didn't even coordinate this. I just bought the shirt. So take it away. That's yours. This is mine.
Well, it was supposed to be a big surprise, but although I did spoil on Twitter. It's going to work. Of course not. My resolution's too high.
1080.
Doesn't take a while. How long does it take? There we go. Seconds. Just enough to panic. Cool. So I'm here from CampJS. Who here has actually been to a CampJS before? Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's probably about a third of the room. So who's heard of it before? Actually, who knows nothing about it then? How about that? Yeah, cool. Alright, so CampJS is held in 3 different cities, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. But this year it's Brisbane's turn. We held it in Springbrook, really cool, kind of like a school camp location. You get there on a Friday afternoon. We provide you with the accommodation, food, and pretty much everything you need. And you pretty much socialise, and we have usually 2 or so tracks going at any one time, and workshops going. They're targeted from beginners to experts, so all levels are welcome. What else do I have to say? I did write a list. Obviously it's on that weekend, lots of information on the CampJS website. We opened up our call for papers on the weekend in collaboration with the Global Diversity Call for Papers Day. So yeah, get on there, submit a workshop. What else do I have to say? We're looking for some more organisers as always, for a volunteer basis, community-driven event. So on the website there's a organisers form that you can fill out, or a volunteers form. And we're doing things properly this time around. It's always been very dodgy. There's been no organisation, no company. We're creating a non-for-profit this time around, getting it all legalised. So if you're a potential sponsor, that means you don't have to, pay for something individually, like the buses. We can actually just take your money and organise it all for you and get that nice tax write-off. So yeah, we are, and the tickets should be out on sale around June. It's a fair way off, but we are doing things legitimately this time around, and it takes time. So yeah, that's about it. That's my 2 minutes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And I highly encourage you to go to that, not just because I'm wearing the t-shirt. It's super fun, super friendly, everyone's good. It's a great learning experience. It's just enriching. So you should just get into it, just be there, chill out in nature and hack on JS. It's brilliant. So it's very, very good. So, while I've got your attention again, can I get you to give a warm welcome to Josh Bird?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. And you'll see.
Just
might have to be
set down to 10 and it'll be up there.
Yeah, it might have to be set to 1080i output.
I did have it working.
Yeah, yeah, it's working. It's working. There it goes.
It was doing Nero before. Can I display this?
Yeah. Right.
Now 1720p.
You guys can see.
Ah.
You can't go 1080i.
No, I want a big text.
Big text.
So, 8 months ago, I went in a galaxy far, far away. I started working at the ABC, in the ABC News digital storytelling team. It was my very first proper developer job, full-time, and I was very scared because they sort of threw me in the deep end by saying they wanted me to chart a spinning globe of North Korean missile ranges. Missile? Yes. North Korean missile ranges around the world, and I had only a small experience in D3, but that was the library that they wanted me to use. So yeah, this presentation is called How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Charting North Korean Missile Ranges in D3.js. So, yeah, my name is Josh Bird. I'm a developer at ABC. That's my username on pretty much every single social media site on the internet. Came up with it in grade 10 and never looked back. So, we've all seen Trump's my nuclear button is bigger than your nuclear button tweets. He's been doing that for quite a while. There's also been fake missile warnings sent out around to Hawaii. This is an example of how not to design a website. One more. Good one. So, this talk's obviously about D3. Who doesn't know what D3 is? All right. What do you think it stands for, D3?
No idea.
Doesn't have anything to do with 3D. It stands for, anyone know?
Data-driven documents.
Yeah, so data-driven documents. But basically it is a JavaScript library for making cool data viz on the internet or wherever. You can make stuff like this. Stuff like this. Or stuff like this. So that's sort of a spinning globe. It's sort of pseudo 3D. That's what we're going to do today. Okay, so we're going to stop here and do some live coding. Your fingers for me. If you want to follow along at home, you can go to this website here, glitch.com/NK for North Korea. And we're going to go there. Yeah. Was that enough? Yeah? Cool. Okay. Yeah. Can you see that? Okay. Awesome. I'm not actually going to be live coding this. I'm sort of just going to be live uncommenting. Okay, so this is Glitch. What we've got is just a basic website with HTML here, and just got a div tag. Close this. So this will show up a blank screen, which is what we want. Let's open up console and inspector here. So I've just got a body and world. I've put D3 in the web page. You can do it if you're using a build environment. Is that too small? I'll try listing it. No, that doesn't work. If you want, but I'll just put it in there. Okay, what we're going to do is create some variables here. So margin, screen width, screen height, just taken from the window. And now comes the D3 part. So D3 is in our browser. So we go D3 select body. So basically D3 is just a way to select things on the page, and you can append things, you can change the style, change attributes and stuff like that, and insert a canvas and draw on the canvas, or draw on SVGs and yeah, make cool stuff. Here we go. So basically I've selected the body here, and I'm going to change the background color to, let's make it green. So when I go to this tab here, bombs away, and there it's green. Yay! Okay, we don't want it green, we want it F9, 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 which is the background color of the ABC website, if anyone's noticed. It's not exactly white. So, yeah, okay, let's put a canvas in. So, I could have selected the body and just put the canvas in there, but I've selected the div that's in there, and I'm going to append a canvas on there. Display block, that gets rid of the little line down the bottom, which is annoying. Width and height. So let's go here, and in our inspector, inside this div here is a canvas. That's our canvas there, and it's the same width as width and height as our window. Okay, now we're going to import some data. Now it's called data-driven documents, so we need some data. This is our story data here, which is just a list of cities, longitude and latitude, ranges and scale for zoom. We're also going to import topo.json file, which is just the world represented in topo.json. I'm just doing an import here straight away because we're using a modern browser. In real life, I asynchronously get it using D3Q or something like that, or if you're using a build environment, you can just require it in there. But yeah, Chrome, you can use import right now. Firefox, you need to do an about config thing, but it works. Let's just check that it works now. It should there we go, we've got our topology there, and we've got our array of cities and stuff. Cool. Okay. This, we're going to convert it into GeoJSON because that's what D3 likes. And this little globe here is a sphere, which is just a pseudo element that D3 uses to make a big circle. We'll get to some exciting stuff pretty soon, seeing some faces in the audience. Okay, so here we go, there's our GeoJSON, the geometry, and here's our sphere. Okay. Okay. So, for a D3 map, we need a projection. You think of a projection as a little light bulb shining light on a path, so a path of a map of Australia. As it shines through the map of Australia, it projects it onto the wall. So we could project it onto a flat surface, but here we're going to project it onto a globe. So the light will be in the middle, we're going to project it onto the globe here, and that's what this geo-orthographic projection is. Clip angle 90, so it only displays the front half of the world. We don't want to display the back. Fit extent is a good feature of D3 version 4, which just makes it fit within the canvas. Okay, next one is context. So the context you need when you're drawing a canvas, pretty much good to think of it as a pen that you can draw with. So we'll get to that later. And then we just need a path, which is geopath. You feed it projection, you feed it the context. Okay, I think that's all we pretty much need to draw something, so I'm going to get straight to our draw function here. Might be running out of time already. Okay, I'm just going to uncomment this draw function here. Okay, so currently calls the draw function, clears, it clears the context, which is the canvas on the screen. So now let's see if this works. So basically we're going to get the context and we're going to begin a path. So with our pen, we're going to set the line width to 1.2. We're going to make this dark blue, this one light blue, and we're going to feed it our globe data GeoJSON from before. Then we're just going to get it to fill it in blue, and again we're going to get a stroke and do a big circle. Everyone fingers crossed, it gives us a circle like that. Excellent, that's our world. Okay, cool. Not very exciting, so let's draw our land masses. So we imported land, oh no, that's not a sort of a GeoJSON. This is our land GeoJSON here that we imported. And we're going to do the same thing, stroke style dark grey, fill style white, the line width 1.1. I found that when you're drawing lines in Chrome and Firefox, if you make the line width 1 pixel, sort of gives it a little stitched appearance, so just make it 1.1, makes it smoother. Feed it land, fill it in, stroke it, let's go. Yay! Cool. Alright. Cool, it's working. Okay, so you'll see it's based on Greenwich Mean Time. We don't want it on Greenwich Mean Time, we want it on North Korea. So let's uncomment this part. This just uses this helper function to get Pyongyang from our story data, which is the first one there. And it just rotates the projection to the longitude and latitude of that point. So let's see if it goes. There we go. There it is. North Korea is right in there. Okay. Now we want to do the range. So we all want to know how far these missiles can go. 1,000 kilometers is pretty far, I think. So let's set it to that. We want a range circle, which is just a D3 geo circle. We feed it the initial point here, Pyongyang, and a radius. So this is another helper function that I had to make. It just takes 1,000 kilometers and divides it by 111.319444. So to get that number, you take the circumference of the Earth and divide by 360, so it gets however many kilometers per degree. And that's the easiest way to do it. When I was trying to do it, there's all kinds of roundabout ways of doing it, but that's the easiest. So let's see. So that'll give us our range circle function there, geocircle. Let's actually draw it here. Draw the launch radius. So same thing, pen, stroke, set the stroke, set the, oh, this is because we want it partially see-through, so we set the global alpha, set it, this is orange, and 2.2 line width. Feed it in the range circle that we just made, and stroke it out. Okay. Yay, there we go, cool. Okay, now for the exciting part. This is where the story comes in. I'm going to just uncomment all of this now because most of it is not D3 related. I've just made it so that when I hit a key, it loops through that data. And when I hit the left arrow key, it goes back. So what you want to pay attention to is this transition here. So D3 has transitions that you can set to a set duration. This one is 1 second, and we're actually not going to use the transition, confusingly. There's another method on top of transitions called tweening, and that's what we're going to use. So you can do a transition on anything. This is just a dummy element. It's a bit confusing, but that's the best way to do this. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to actually comment out those. Just so we know that we're cycling through the story here. We can go there, so if you can see that. So that Brisbane, Alaska, Guam. Okay, cool. So here, we're interpolating between the previous rotation and the current rotation. Okay, so the interpolation functions get called by this tween function here. About 60 times every second, it calls this function and it feeds it a number, which is time, from 0 to 1. So 60 frames a second quickly counts in a floating point from 0 to 1. And then it calls this projection rotate. So same thing as we did before, rotating it to North Korea. We're going to rotate it just a slight bit every animation frame. So let's see if this rotates for us. Come on. There we go. Okay, cool. Alaska, back to Brisbane, back to North Korea. Okay, cool, we're rotating. And same thing with radius, just want to interpolate between the previous and current one. And then you just call the range circle radius and set it. And that should work as well. Let's have a look. There you go. So that's 5,000 kilometers, that's 10,000 kilometers, 4,678 kilometers. Okay, last one is the zooming, which is exactly the same. Previous scale, current scale. We set the projection scale to that, 60 frames a second. I'll go backwards this time because it's a bigger zoom. There we go. Okay. So you may see that when it goes here, the range circle gets sort of cut off on the circumference of the circle. This was a problem that I had to work out. I'll just show you. The easy way to do this is I just drew a big circle around the Earth that's 12 pixels wide, and then you get something like this, which does fix it, but now we've lost the stroke, so let's add that stroke back on. Okay. There we go. And now you get the illusion that the missile range is going behind the Earth, like that. And that's pretty much it. And then we get the ABC site here, which is pretty much the same, with a few extra features. We hooked it up to our scrolly teller, and we put little labels on there, which were surprisingly hard to make. Also because they transition to portrait mode as well. Cool. All right, now back to the presentation. And the end of my speech. So it's time for launch. The website, not the missiles. Hopefully. So yeah, we launched. I think on the weekend there was news that North Korea was threatening Australia because we aligned ourselves with the US, and so we thought, what better time to put this out than Monday? So 9 AM Monday we put it out, and pretty good traffic here, and then yeah, I think the pink is the external source of traffic, and here is the point where it goes front page on Reddit. So yeah, and it ended up being the biggest, most viewed news story on the ABC website for 2017. So, pretty good. So here, if anyone's ever read any Reddit comments on the internet, you'll know they're usually pretty terrible. For some reason, for some reason this one got some pretty good ones. Like this one, no joke, this is the coolest mobile site I've ever visited. I can't even think of a close second. That said, the information is presented very informatively as well. And I can't fucking believe that someone managed to make this work so beautifully on mobile. Yeah. So, nothing more. Clever coding, great design, custom animations, activated the hit button based on scroll position. Scrolling through that in mobile was like porn. Yeah. This is cool too. For some reason, I'm surprised to see open source projects coming from ABC News. They seem like cool guys. I don't know about that. So, hope your takeaway from this is, if I can do it, you can too. Yep, that's it. And any questions?
So the bit about open source, is D3.js and ABC develop open source?
No, it's an open source project developed by a guy called Mike Bostock, who does all sorts of cool stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that the source for the actual map is on the ABC GitHub, so check that out. It's pretty much what I went through today with a little bit extra tacked on. That took me about 2 months to make instead of 10 minutes here. So yeah. Yep.
What was your other reason for choosing Canvas?
Yeah. Okay. So Canvas, I had done I was lying a bit saying I had no experience. I had done a solar eclipse chart right before I did this. I used SVG to do that, and I just experimented with Canvas just to see if we could get a higher frame rate, and yeah, much higher frame rate on Canvas rendering than SVG. So we went with that.
And WebGL or something?
WebGL is the next one that we're going to do. So yeah, it's a little bit more complicated doing WebGL, but I've had a look at it, and so next time hopefully we can do WebGL, which will be even faster. Cool. Yep.
What was the hardest part? Hardest and most rewarding part?
Just getting it looking that smooth and everything. But as I said, the hardest part was the labels. I sort of sat down and had to construct them in D3 sort of individually, and yeah, it was nice getting them to work on portrait mode as well. Yep.
As a new developer, how did you deal with those sort of like overwhelming moments?
Fortunately, when you're doing this full time, you can just take a step back. You can read over the documentation again, and look at other examples online, which I pretty much took a lot of that from just this one example online that Mike Bostock, who did D3, did. He did a spinning globe as well, and I sort of just customized it a little bit and made it fit for our purpose. So yeah, I think it's just, yeah, you take a step back and just work things out in little stages. So yeah, if I wanted to put a circle on the map, so just focus squarely on getting range circle, getting the geo circle, and popping it on there, and then just expand from that.
Has Kim Jong-un seen this?
I don't know, actually. Yeah, I think.
Very good. Discovered enough, long enough. The range is not long enough.
Well, I don't know. They've got some internet. All right. Thank you very much. This was my very first full-length talk as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. And you did excellently. And we want to see more of that. We want to see more people. Don't be afraid. Come up, say hi. We're all very accommodating folks, hopefully. And if we're not, we'll make changes. So, lightning talks. Please remember, there is a notebook. We will call upon you after we have Anna's talk to do lightning talks. Very important. Very excellent opportunity, actually. So I'm pretty much going to tell everyone it's food time, which is a very exciting time of this evening. So we have much popular demand requested for vegan pizzas. There's a happy person there. We did get them. There's 6 of them. They're vegan, vegetarian, and so as you go from left to right, it gets more meaty. So more death to the right, very much no death on the left. So choose your preference there. Please leave, obviously the non-cruel pizzas to the people who are interested in that.
Have a go, they're not too bad.
So I will actually ask said vegetarians and vegans to please shuffle down the back of the room, as I have been doing recently. That way everyone can make sure that they get in and get a pizza. Because, they're delicious. Vegetables are delicious. People who eat vegetarian pizzas too. We'll just give them a head start, and then we can all just pounce. You should find plenty of bins as well. There's some bottle openers there if you require that for some of the beers. There's also plenty of soft drinks, heaps of water, so you've got lots of options there. Try and also make your way around, signs that say that you're going to do a talk. Come around here, use the space. You don't want everyone to sort of get stuck down the back there. So you're welcome to move around. Go get them, folks. Thanks very much for your patience. We'll see you back here in about 20 minutes.
Anyone want to do a video testimonial? Really? That's a great idea. Therefore, request vegan cheese.
It's not an option you can pick. I would be cruel doing that, but no. It's fine.
Okay. So you can tell us about BrisJS. What does BrisJS mean to you, Kev?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
It's an amazing creative outlet for developers. It's a social space. It's a great way to actually get in touch with Brisbane, because people think it's a sleepy little town where you don't do any development, but everything is further from the truth. There's so much going on. There's huge projects all the time. There's tons of companies here, tons of opportunity here, and this is kind of this little microcosm of like 100 people every month that we can pull together, and you can get the sense of what's going on around the city. and Greater Queensland in a way, because we get people from Gold Coast and from everywhere just coming up to BrisJS. So it's just a great way to connect with people. It's a great way to look for work. It's a great way to actually get employees, connect with the community again, keep up to date with new tech, everything you get out of that community feel. So I think that's
really cool,
important.
man. I really, really wish this was turned on.
Cool. Should be.
Yeah. It totally is.
Good.
Stop tripping on the cables.
Feel free to bring your beverage to your seat and settle in for some more talks.
It's like a galaxy. Did you paint that, Anna?
Huh?
Did you paint that?
No, it's a sticker. AliExpress.
It's like
like $8 and you can have like 2 seconds.
I'll put that on the Twitters.
I think I was at this stage.
They almost tweeted you like last week because they got through the whole week making their own vegan lunches. I am not from
No, I mean, I was studying what? Yeah, that was because I was like vegetarian, but also not vegetarian, fish and everything, and cheese, so I'm still trying. Yeah.
I'm still Sam too.
I'm still settling down. This? Good.
All right. Hopefully everyone's settled and they're all comfortable. Start the beverage. Okay, cool. Can I get you all to give a warm welcome to Anna Gerber?
Okay, can everyone hear me? Alright, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna and I'm a senior backend developer at PCCW Global, formerly known as Console Connect, here in Brisbane anyway. And I apologise, this was originally a lightning talk, so my slides are really lean, so please use your imagination to insert memes and cool stuff where appropriate. The context for this talk is, for about a decade I was described as a full stack web developer. So although I sort of knew my way around an API and I'd written some basic API stuff in PHP and Java and Python and later in Node, I hadn't really focused on being an API developer until about a year ago when I started at what was then Console Connect, now PCCW Global, on the API team. So the focus there has been purely as an API developer. So this is a talk that describes that sort of journey of going from what was mostly a front-end full stack role to focusing purely on the back end and development in the process. So this is just 6 strategies that you can use to develop more awesome APIs. What did I say? Contract first. The second one, which is closely related to contract first development, is test-driven development. Now, test-driven development is a really great strategy. This is the idea that instead of just rushing in and running your code, you start by thinking about the problem and then writing some tests that you're going to use to verify whether or not you solved it. Writing the minimal amount of code that you need to make the test pass, and then going back and being clever and refactoring the code, make it cleaner, that sort of thing. Now, test-driven development goes hand in hand with contract-first development because you can be writing your tests at the same time as you're developing your contracts. You don't need to have the code in place to be able to do the testing. And I've found that a lot of the problems that you have with your contracts, the inconsistencies, the incomplete documentation, the gaps in your contracts, can be found when you're setting up your tests, because you pretty much have to go through the steps of using those APIs if you're writing acceptance tests against them. So it means that within the same sprint, you can have validated your contract and fixed it up at that point when it's still within the API team without having sent it out to the other teams. So it's less expensive to fix problems than it would be if it's already been implemented by, say, 2 web clients and 2 mobile clients and so forth. So it's a really great match for contract-first development. But the catch, and I discovered this the hard way, when you're refactoring your code, you also need to refactor your tests, because we ended up in a place where we had thousands of tests, which is awesome in terms of coverage, but it meant that they were taking 7 hours to run, which is not cool if you're trying to do continuous testing. So you really need to make sure you maintain that high coverage, but constantly going in, reusing tests where you can. Don't just write brand new tests for every single feature. Doing benchmarking, doing some profiling of your tests just to make sure that you've got the most efficient tests that you can. And balancing the amount of tests that you have, say, at unit test level against acceptance, against integration. So you should be aiming for a sort of a pyramid of tests, if you like. Lots of unit tests, very few end-to-end tests. So test-driven development was number 2. Number 3, and this relates to both of those previous 2 points, prioritizing the developer experience. Now, as a front-end developer, I had heard a lot about user experience design, because you're trying to build front-end systems that users can use and they're intuitive and usable. I did not realize, before I started focusing on API full-time, that it's equally valid for APIs. Your end users are not front-end users, they're the developers who will be consuming your APIs. So you really need to think about how to build APIs that are not only functional, not only well-documented, but also that are usable. They should be easy to use, they should be a joy to use, because we've all tried to use as front-end developers APIs that are pretty terrible. And what if all of our APIs could be the same? That would be amazing. So this is something that I've really pushed for in the last year at Console, is to try to develop the API in a way that's empathetic to the needs of developers. So considering their use cases, considering their needs, just like we would if we were considering the users at the end users' use cases. So understanding those use cases, making it not only possible for them to develop things, but to make it fast, easy for them to develop those things. And a big part of that is responding to developer feedback in order to eliminate their pain points. So this feeds into the design of the API. Some strategies that I found really useful for designing the API is to use model design, think about the endpoints and the paths, the route, and express terminology that you would use. I think about the models that I want to expose, because it's much easier for me to think about providing an appropriate level of abstraction and an appropriate level of granularity for my end users who are developers when I think about it in terms of models. And then I can actually go in and generate a lot of those endpoints from those models. One of the design principles that we have in our front-end design team at Console is that design should be as little as possible. So that is, try to produce a minimal solution that meets people's needs, but no more. You don't want to overly complicate it and bloat it. So in terms of API design, that means prioritizing simplicity and clarity in both the documentation and in the models that you're exposing. But one of the things you do need to do when you're planning is to be proactive rather than reactive. So instead of just throwing an extra field on a model because suddenly you have a new requirement, think about where that best fits in so that you can anticipate future requirements. You want to keep your models flexible so that you don't have to change the API too much over time and introduce breaking changes. Sometimes change is necessary, so the thing that you can do there is to try to anticipate the changes as soon as possible, be able to communicate those changes to the developers consuming your APIs so that they know in advance that those changes are coming. So it's a strategy for communication, is developing these API docs. Another thing that's really important for the developer experience is cultivating consistency. And this is not only across your API design, but it's also in terms of the code that you write. So we know that coding is usually a team effort. Unfortunately, I've been kind of a team of one for a little while, but in theory, it's a team effort, at least of yourself and your past self and your future self. So I remain hopeful. Oh, by the way, we are hiring, so I won't be a team of one forever. So please, if you are interested in working on the API console, please come and talk to me, please. So there's a range of individuals contributing to the code base, so you need to be consistent to make it easy to maintain. In the design, so making it easier for the consumers of your API, you would think about things like naming conventions, how you structure your APIs, so do you have sort of nested routes or is everything flat at the top level? Consistency in terms of the responses that you provide. Do you have a standard set of status codes that you use? How do you use your HTTP methods? Do you use put for update? Do you use put for create? Do you use post for create? There's different conventions in terms of that. Error handling, and of course versioning. So versioning is actually pretty easy if you stick to something like semantic versioning. Consistency in terms of the way that you code your APIs, well, this is the same as coding in the front end as well. Naming conventions, using consistent style, and I like to use ESLint and editor config to apply consistent style across my code base. We're using the Airbnb style at console. One of the great things about developing a node rather than the front end is that you can use ES6 because you don't have to worry about with backwards compatibility, so you can kind of move with the times, which is awesome. And also, something that's important is a consistent approach to handling asynchronicity. So do you use promises? Do you use async wait? Do you use callbacks? Do you use an async module? I mean, there's lots of different ways that people approach handling async, and if you use a combination of those approaches throughout your code base, it's going to get confusing very quickly. So trying to be consistent there. And also having a consistent approach to logging. So one of the things I learned when I started at console was using debug rather than using console.log, because it means that you can set the node debug environment variable and you can filter that log very easily, and that's super cool. And also using logging libraries so that you can do more things with your log outputs. And then also having a consistent environment for development. So we use Docker for our development environment, but also having a consistent set of environment variables just to make it easier to keep that config the same across our different systems. And also having a consistent set of scripts for doing things like publishing and testing and that sort of thing without having to have that mental load of how do I run this command. You just know that you can run npm run whatever, and it will work in whatever environment you're in. The next thing is probably informed more by the fact that I've been a team of one for about a year rather than API development in general, but work smarter and not harder. So if you have to suddenly do the work of 3 people, you want to try to automate as much as you can. Sorry, you try to make effective use of your time by optimizing your developer flows as much as you can. So a big one for me has been code generation. So a lot of API endpoints look much the same when you're talking about CRUD routes, create, read, update, delete. And why should I waste my time writing those over and over again? So one of the things that we've been doing is moving to loopback, which is a framework that lets you describe the models, and then it will generate vast amounts of these endpoints that will do everything from create, read, update, delete, querying, filtering, and so forth. So being able to use that, and it also generates the docs as well, has saved a lot of time in developing new features. Automation across all the other processes as well. So any task that's repetitive that you have to do more than twice, you should probably think about scripting it or automating it, using the tools to the best of their ability. So using npm-rc, using your package.json scripts, writing scripts that you can insert in there that will do things like when you publish your code, it updates the Jira tickets, it updates tags on Git, it publishes to Slack or to HipChat or whatever you're using. It automates triggering off the tests, using Jenkins or whatever other continuous testing integration server you're using. Using your environment variables also to manage that behavior across different environments. So you can use Node-M, for example, with Express to trigger different configs and different behaviors. And also automating things like security checks using the Node security project. So I don't really have to worry about doing manual security checks. I just use theirs. The other important aspect of optimizing my developer flow has been mastering my tools. So there's no point in having all these fancy scripts if I'm then doing everything kind of manually in my code editor or manually going to GUIs and clicking around. It's important to take the time to learn the shortcuts in your code editor, your IDE, learn the command line options for the tools that you're using all the time. For me, it's Mocha, Git, Node, and really getting your head around Git as well in terms of understanding the Git workflow that you're using, so that whenever you need to quickly build something, release something, do a hotfix, you're not having to think, how would I do this? How do I backport these changes? It's just all scripted, it's all automatic and easy to do. And the other part of this is keeping your tools up to date as well. If you're using ancient versions of something like Mocha or Node, and then you do need to go and change something and you want to go and look up how to do it, and you have to work out, did it apply to that version, 3 versions back? So keeping up to date, moving with the times, is really important. And you can use MVM to switch between different versions if you have to support older versions, to do your testing and so forth. But you should be developing on the latest version if you can. All right, and the final tip is development of yourself, not just your code. So developing APIs is not really about the code. A lot of it is about the design. And I found in some ways API development is a lot simpler than front-end development, because all of that crap I had to worry about with different browser versions and stupid workarounds for getting my layout right on the mobile versus the desktop and so forth, I don't have to deal with in the API. My code is much cleaner, much more logical. That gives me more time to think about the actual problems that I'm trying to solve instead of spending 3 days trying to work out why it didn't work in Firefox or Safari. So one of the things that I spend my time now doing is thinking about, can I do things a better way? So I'm always trying to level up in terms of my API development knowledge. Looking to do things in a simple way, in a faster way, make it easier for people to understand, not only people writing in my code base, but also the developers using my API. And this really requires, just like with any other sort of code, professional development, improving your skills, staying up to date. And there are 3 ways that I like to do that. The first one is what I call code criticism, and criticism in the sense like literary criticism. It's the idea of judging something by its merits and faults. So instead of just like jumping in and writing code from scratch all the time, go and take a look at other people's code. Read through other API docs, particularly for projects that you admire or that are well respected. And actually review that code. Don't just glance at it. Treat it like you were doing a code review for a colleague. There's a lot that you can learn from really inspecting and judging other people's code. And don't just stick to projects that you like. So also look at bad projects so that you've got a point of comparison. If you were a novelist, you probably wouldn't just jump in and start writing a novel, right? You would read other people's work, you'd read reviews, you'd read both bad and good, pulp fiction as well as classics. It gives you a sense of where things fit in the spectrum. So you can learn from the mistakes and the successes of other projects, and also look at other languages. If you're developing a Node, don't be afraid to go read through Java API docs and API code, and other paradigms. Not everything is a RESTful API. Go and look at some message bus-based APIs. See how they've solved particular problems, you might learn something. The second thing is to experiment. So take those lessons that you've learned from reading other people's code and from seeing what's out there, and try it out. Try out tutorials, work on side projects, contribute to open source if you have time and inclination, participate in hackathons, go along to things like Camp.js and do some developer retreat sort of coding with other people. You will learn so much from your peers. And learning from the community is really what it's all about. So get involved in the community, stay visible. There's not really that many of us who are only doing API development, and remember that it's not all front end. Attend meetups, which you're obviously doing, but also talk at them. So get up and do a lightning talk. Let's hear more from API developers in BrisJS. And that is pretty much it. That's my 6 ways to an awesome API. Because APIs are awesome and they deserve more love. Thank you.
Very well said. Do we have any questions for Anna?
Yes.
regarding the slide about code consistency, you were saying about AEST and other things.
Yep.
Do you use TypeScript at all?
I don't. You know, you have to fit in with what your organization uses. We have not traditionally used TypeScript, so no.
Right. But would you use it personally?
I would definitely try it out for a small project and see what I thought about it. I know that there's been some vigorous debates here in the past about whether or not it's worth the time, but I think, yeah, keep an open mind.
On the one about being really easy to front end,
Yeah.
how do you let it align an API in a space?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a conversation. Sometimes, like, I'm very lucky to work with some excellent front-end developers, not naming anyone, but you know, they don't come to me and say, I need this endpoint, it has to be exactly like this. They'll come to me with some requirements, some user stories, and together we can work on what the API needs to look like to support. Yeah.
What do you miss up front end?
Nothing. APIs are awesome, come join my team. Yeah.
Surely worrying about security, overthinking about how people do.
Yeah, we have a security team who actually take a lot of that off me, and I do use the Node Security project as well, which is awesome. I think security is a difficult problem, an important problem, but there are a lot of really smart people who are solving it. So I stand on the backs of giants, you know, have to. Yeah.
Where can we find the job ad?
It is on Indeed. Let me pull it up. Give me a second. Yes. You can just search for PCCW Global, come and talk to me afterwards, talk to Kevin, get in touch via Twitter or anywhere, and yeah, you'll find it. Yes? Oh, that's a tricky one because books get out of date so quickly, right? No. Thank you.
API developers are awesome. I am obligated to say that because she implements the things I need. No. It's complete truth. And you should definitely join us. We have a cool growing team and we're going to do amazing things. Yes, you have a list. Oh my god. Thank you very much.
Lightning talks.
There's many names on this. This is good. All right. Thank you very much for the brave people who have done this. You are excellent. We will support you in this endeavor and we're very keen to hear what you have to say. So we're going to go into the lightning talk section, as you might have guessed. First up on the list is Caitlin with pair programming. Can I get Caitlin to come down? Give a round of applause. You have this one or that one? This one? Easier. We have to shift the clock a little bit. Should be short. It's a bit slow.
Give it a bit of patience.
If you do have any issues, you have to set the display up to 1080i.
Yes. It's not on.
Yep, there you go. You got lucky. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, cool.
It's very good.
I'll take that one.
Oh, you want this one? Sorry, my bad. Flick the one.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
Okay, I can hear you too. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I am a Rails developer. I also do a bit of work with Ember. I've been working recently with Phaser, which has been super fun, making games. And Ash asked me to come and talk tonight about pair programming, which is actually something I do a lot of. So I'm a junior developer. I've been working as a developer since June of last year. And we've got a really small consultancy. We've got 6 developers on our, in our entire company, and it's really good that we actually do spend a lot of time working together. And I'm just going to have a quick chat about why that's awesome. So this is what we look like when we pair program. This is one of my favourite groups of all time, and it just keeps on getting better every time. You just look at it; it's great. Okay, so that's not what pair programming is. Obviously, I think most of us realise you can't have 2 people typing on a keyboard at the time. I'm going to come back to something related to that later though. So in terms of why you should pair program, a lot of people aren't super comfortable with it. A lot of people, are very protective of their code and their coding habits. But there's a lot of, great reasons to do it, especially if you're working with, a pair that's different levels of experience. It's particularly great for working with juniors. A lot of the time, especially in an industry like this, there's things that you don't know, and you don't know you don't know them, and you don't know that you don't know them until someone tells you that you don't know them, and it's great. It's really hard, especially as a junior, trying to figure out what questions to ask, and one of the best ways to do that is actually if you're working through a problem and someone's seeing where you're getting stuck or where your thought process is going as it's happening. It's a lot easier to kind of just divert that as it's happening, then come back to it when you've completed a whole feature and it's in code review, and trying to sort of pull it apart and start from fresh. Whoa. Yeah. I'm not paying attention to what screen is which. Yeah, it's easy to pick up areas while you're building it, then reviewing it. You're looking at it in more detail. You're thinking, in the actual practice of it. You can also see it running without having to actually download the branch and run it and click through everything. You're actually seeing it while it's being built. So it's a lot easier to pick up things that might not have been noticed otherwise in a code review. It's great for mentoring, not just for teaching, but also for figuring out what needs to be covered. So if you're actually working through something, it gives you lots of opportunities to just ask little questions that might be directly related or just a little aside, and gives you ideas in terms of where your juniors need a bit more focus and where they need a bit more training, where they might need some resources suggested, etc. If it's 2 more experienced developers, it actually is going to make you a lot less likely to rush through something. It's going to make you a lot more inclined to do your best work because there's someone else who you hopefully respect if you're working with them, that's looking at what you're doing. And again, it's sort of not a negatively critical, but a more critical in terms of picking up those little things you might not otherwise when you're working through something together. And it also means that you can discuss those sort of larger picture items as you get to them. Everybody gets to learn something, so obviously none of us know everything. And so it's really good to, if there are more experienced people but pair programming together, make sure they're people with different areas of expertise. It also helps you focus. You're less likely to, pull out your phone while someone's sitting next to you, especially if it's your boss. Less likely, not going to. Okay. I still feel like I'm not quite up to date with where I'm talking. Anyway, in terms of when you want to pair program, okay, I think that you can pair program anytime, you just don't want to do it all the time. Obviously, there's a lot of, there is a lot of sort of double up of time that's used when you've got 2 people working on something. Some of the particular times it's really good is if someone's new to a project, they don't have a lot of domain knowledge of that particular area of the an app or something. And so then working with someone who's got more experience, they're going to be able to answer those questions straight away and give them a bit more of a well-rounded understanding of what the whole purpose is and how things fit together. I should put only at the start, only when people have the right attitude. You don't want to have people being forced to work together when they really don't like it. If it's something that's important to your company, make sure it's something that you're discussing in interviews and make sure it's just something you're introducing well. It's not going to end well, it's not going to be productive if you're making people do it when they hate it. Also not necessarily good when you're really at the time intensive end of a project and you really need to get stuff finished, pair programming does take longer. It makes better code, so in the long run when you've got a long time frame of a project ahead of you, it can be time efficient and makes your project better at the end, and then less time to fix the things because there's less things that need fixing. But definitely not something you want to spend a lot of time on when things are quite tense. On that again, make sure you're doing it early in a project when big new features are being introduced. So when you're looking at like the overall architecture of things, that's when it's really good to have, stop and actually have conversations about things rather than just sort of pushing through. The order of this wasn't super well thought out, but yeah, making sure that people are actually comfortable giving and receiving feedback from whoever they're working with. So people in your teams might not have the best, working relationships, and so making sure you're selective about who you're pairing together so that it's not working against them. A lot of people are more comfortable giving feedback in code review. A lot of people will not, criticise in a constructive way even when they're face to face with someone. If you've got people like that, pair programming isn't going to necessarily be for them. And just a couple of last little tips. Use a wireless keyboard so you can actually pass between people. In a lot of pair programming, okay, so not necessarily both people like typing away on it at once, but being able to pass between people is really good. In a lot of pair programming, you've got one person who's just sort of sitting there talking, which is a bit of a waste of time sometimes. A lot of the time it does save a lot of time to type something out rather than trying to explain to someone where to do it. If you have one less experienced person, then make sure they're using the keyboard most of the time. Otherwise, the more experienced person is just going to stream through things and get carried away, get in the flow of things, and the junior is going to have no idea what's going on. They're not learning anything, it's wasting time doing that. Mixing up pairs and experience levels, so making sure that people aren't necessarily working with the same people all the time, working with lots of different people, both more and less experienced. So the whole more senior, more junior person doesn't just need to be for actual juniors, it can be for mid-levels, it can be for seniors. There's always going to be someone who's more experienced at something, so make sure it's mixing up. As I mentioned before, make sure you're saving it for the big picture tasks. Don't have two people working on changing, the size of a text box or a label or adding a menu button, but make sure it's sort of bigger picture stuff that you actually need to have those discussions about. If it's not happening, like in our company, we just kind of will select someone and say, hey, do you have a second? I want to go through something, and it works really naturally because it's something that's in the culture of the company. To get that into the culture, make sure you're scheduling it so you can get used to doing it and used to having that back and forth with people as they're working on things. But don't force it. If people hate it, don't make them do it. It's not that great. It is great though. All right, thank you.
It's all right. Yeah. All right. There it goes. Thanks very much. Okay, and now we have Kartik up next. Give him a warm welcome. Set the prices high, come down the hall.
Get you hooked up.
Yes.
Oh, there's.
Over there. There we go. Do you want this one or lapel? Lapel's just there.
That should be. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. It might not be on.
Oh, hang on.
On. 3,
Oh,
2,
and this
1. It's happening. Yep. Give it a second.
Gotta warm up. There it goes.
This is mirroring, isn't it?
Just from the conference level, maybe when this was told us to make time.
There we go.
I think it's something that goes with the
So, fantastic. Great. So, as you guys read the title, I'm going to be talking about polyfills. Who here has heard of polyfills?
Oh wow, so, okay, go easy on me now. All right, you guys use polyfills regularly? All right, Josh does, cool. Is that a D3 thing, Josh?
Yeah, just IE11.
Oh, okay. ABC supports IE11.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So, filling up on polyfills, and that's me. That's me. All right, so I work as an Ember developer at a company called GBST. I recently moved to Brisbane from Sydney to work here as an Ember dev, and we're actually starting an Ember meetup, but we'll talk about that later, or at the Ember meetup. So, polyfill. So where does the name come from, and what does it mean? So, this is a wall with a hole in it, and the paste that is being used is called Polyfilla. So Remy Sharp, a software dev, was trying to think of a term to sort of fill up these holes in web browsers where functionality doesn't exist, or these web browsers don't support certain functionality. As Josh pointed out, IE11 probably doesn't do something, probably doesn't do a lot, and you need to patch that so that you can make it absolutely flawless and clear, and then paint over it or put a wallpaper over it with no holes in the background. Once it doesn't have any holes, you're free to paint on it or put a wallpaper on it as you wish. So, there's actually a story on Remy Sharp's blog where he says he was sitting in a coffee shop, as we all do in the United States, I guess, more than here, thinking with his laptop, thinking about a term for this particular thing. He wanted to call it shim, but he said that, you know, shimming is generally to do with APIs, and I don't think this is a proper term for it. He thought about progressive enhancement, but, you know, it's not more of an enhancement. You're already using a baseline, which is JavaScript, and you're also using a latest technology, so it's not an enhancement as such. It's not a graceful degradation. So graceful degradation, he decided not to call that. It's all fancy terms because it doesn't have any native functionality in it. So he decided to call it polyfills after a product I think you get in the UK called Polyfilla. And one other guy described it as regressive degradation. I thought I'll just put it in there. So wouldn't it be nice, so the reason we do this, wouldn't it be nice to develop in a future-proof way? So we should be able to develop with HTML5, APIs and scripts, create the methods and objects that we want without, you know, having to feel the sense to go back into the past, just develop with the latest stuff. And if we use polyfills, we can bring these browsers or these features in browsers up to date and then just paint over it as we want. So an example of a polyfill, can everybody see that? Yep, cool. So an example of a polyfill is if you want is not a number, so you say you use the number method inside, number module inside JavaScript, and you write this little function, then you include it inside your script, and number dot is not a number, and it tells you. Now, the criticism to polyfills, according to some people, is that this feels a lot like monkey patching the API, and that is the term that they use. What happens if the polyfill that you've written is not spec compliant, or what happens if the API changes? So this group of people got together and sort of thought about it in another way. Instead of using the number module inside JavaScript, why don't we just export a module altogether, not make it dependent on number? So module.exports return value is not equal to a value, and that becomes your isnan ponyfill. So instead of having a polyfill, they call it a ponyfill, and that is their official logo. It's because a pony is pure. They claim polyfills are naughty as they patch native APIs, while ponyfills are pure and do not affect the environment. So, there are another group of people who still weren't happy with this and say, you know, what if we want a polyfill for an API that is yet to come, that is not yet standardized, or it's missing an ES6 specifications? So they decided to call it a polyfill, so probably polyfill. So an example of that is if you want to see JSON.load or JSON.save as native functions, you can use the JSON future polyfill, which is made by an organization called KikoBeats. So this in turn becomes a polyfill. So that's all I had today with polyfills, ponyfills, and polyfills.
Well done. Okay.
Questions?
Sorry. Yeah, question time.
Questions? And as everybody here has used polyfills more than I have, please feel free to jump in. They're open source at the end of the day.
I'd never heard of Polyfill. That's fantastic. It's a great idea.
Any questions? Excellent.
Awesome. Alrighty, Corey, you know you want to. So Corey Nunn is going to tell us about fully asynchronous expression language, apparently. And so give him a welcome. Alright. You know the drill.
Very little battery life. So I've got a hard time with it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's not working.
That's not on. It's working now.
Hello. The title is terrible, but I had to come up with it really fast, so I decided to just do a shit job of it.
We can't see it yet.
Oh, see? That's how shit the job is. Can you make it? Oh, that's right, because it's a Windows machine.
No,
wait.
There you go.
It's a Windows machine. Where's perfectly what I'm talking about? Alright, so I'm just going to jump over here. So this is just like intro to what I'm talking about. By the way, this is just purely, I'm just interested in it. It's kind of fun. This is not like you're not going to learn anything other than maybe I'm an idiot, but other than that, it's just fun. So there's a thing that I've written and I've used actually quite in a number of projects, personal and, sorry? Zoom. Oh,
and bigger. Thank you.
No. I've used this in a number of personal projects and professional, legitimate money-making ones. Well, I don't know, money-making, who knows? You don't have to make money to be a company, do you? Anyway, so this is basically, if you ever have the requirement to run code effectively that your users give you, but obviously you don't want to run real code because they're your users and they're untrustworthy inherently. But you want to be able to let them, do some kind of code but not break everything. I wrote this little language that's like similar to JavaScript in many ways, but a little bit more simple. I thought, hey, I may as well make it something kind of fun that I, sometimes I'm like, that's kind of annoying in JavaScript. I'll try and not do that in this language. So it's pretty basic, like implicit returns. If anyone's, who here knows what implicit returns are? Yeah, cool. So in non-JavaScript languages, by the way, there are other languages. They're not that good. But anyway, in non-JavaScript languages, actually, sorry, who here knows what an arrow function is? Oh, you all know what an implicit return is. So you know when you go like x, like that, you're not saying return, it just returns. So basically the last evaluated token is the thing that gets returned. So if you go like this, if you go x, comma, like if you put like a there or whatever, that'll throw obviously. But if you go like foo, zoom in. Oh my god. Everyone can read that surely. Yep. All right, cool. So in this sort of situation, I'm sure that'll probably parse bad because arrow syntax is a bit shit anyway. And then you do that, and then you do implicit returns. You know what? Bad example. Anyway, In Presh, everything's an implicit return. There's no such thing as an explicit return, so that obviously has some implications like if statements don't really make any sense. You can't like return inside an if, you know. So everything's like, it has to be like a full proper expression. So you use ternaries to do ifs, stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm using this in a lot of stuff, and I totally switched to a tab, but I can't because it'll crash my server. It's fine. Anyway, last time I talked, I think maybe, I was saying that I wrote like a crypto trading bot, and it wasn't making any money. Now it's like, well, I mean, the market's crashed, so it's still not really making money, but it's doing well compared to the market, which is pretty good. But anyway, I wrote my rules in Presh, so my buy-sell rules, so I obviously have at least some level of confidence since I have my own money writing on the expressions actually evaluating. I did kind of have a friend on my bot. He has a copy of my bot, and there was a bug in my Presh, and it wouldn't sell anything over 5% profit. Oops. I fixed that, that's all good. Anyway, I'm actually currently in my spare time writing a trading bot as a service. So basically, you can come along to my service, sign up. You have your own exchange, so I don't want to deal with your money at all. Obviously, there's legal implications that I can't be bothered dealing with. But you can just give me your trading API private key. That's fine, surely. And then you can write your own bot, your own like trading logic in Presh. Now that all sounded well and good, and I was like, this is brilliant, it's going to be so easy to just do it. Except for the fact that I'm going to have stuff like the ability to run like a median over a set of times, so you can hit my, basically you call things, say like, give me the market median for this market from this time to this time. Now that's going to take a while, it can't happen immediately because like you got to do things and stuff. There's many bits they got to flip and whatever. So I was like, you know what's a brilliant idea? I've been thinking in the back of my head, okay, so more context, and I'm sure most of you are going to realize this, I really don't like async await, it's shit. That's just a fact, that's not an opinion, no, sorry. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of it, especially because if you go like, you know, x equals a promise for something, y equals a promise for something, and then you go, like return x plus y, it'll explode obviously because you can't add two promises together. You have to go await x, await y, or whatever, and then you often, not always you don't have to do this, but you often get into a situation where x and y, like x has to finish and then y will start and then y has to finish and you can't like parallelize all this stuff. And I was like, why don't you just make the language, like if you're going to go to the effort of destroying the language with async await, you may as well destroy it to the point where all, like the entire AST just resolves eventual values so that you can just take it like an eventual and use the plus operator and that just like turns into an addition eventual. Yeah. And so, I mean, it seems whatever, but they're like, no, it couldn't possibly make it good. Anyway, I was like, it can't be that hard, surely. So it's actually not that hard. I switched it, where did it go? There. I rewrote Presh the other day to be fully internally asynchronous so that all, geez, this is terrible. Oh, it's too small, I know. Oh, now it's useless. That's all right, we'll figure it out. This is just some shit that you don't need to worry about. So here we go, this is Presh. So you can see there's a function here called load data. It's gone squiggly because I can't spell apparently. Whatever. This is an asynchronous, that's not, that sounds terrible. It's a function that returns an eventual basically. So load data equal, you can see how it's in here, load data. So it returns a write-o, because I'm me, and it makes a call to cpjax, which is, am I running out of time already? Shit. I'll go really fast. Whatever. It does an AJAX request. It does this stuff. Whatever. It returns an eventual. Cool. So this here returns a token that is an eventual token that gets passed directly into what looks like a synchronous function filter, which it is a synchronous function effectively, but because the way this language works, every single token is effectively returns an asynchronous result. So things like plus, rather than, like I said before, if you put the plus operator into eventuals, it just creates an eventual operator that adds them eventually. So here you go, this is like get users with company, so I call get users with company, create, and I go add company to the users. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't have variables in Presh because state and So anyway, I go add company, load data companies, create companies. At this point, companies hasn't actually loaded yet because it's an eventual argument. That argument isn't actually resolved yet, but it will be at some point. But you can use it before it is resolved inside the function. So down here, it filters through load data people. So right now, companies is in flight. This function has already run before that comes back. This is in flight. Filter gets, actually filter's going to be a top level function. So it will actually wait to run that until all of its arguments are ready to go. Once they're ready to go, it'll run filter, which will return an array of eventual filtered values, which will be eventually mapped over with person, which may be resolved, but probably who knows. And then it creates an object using the object fill, like the object literal, where you take an object and you put like and you say, hey, you become that object, but with more stuff. So this here can be an eventual value that gets eventually filled into the object that eventually results in the object with that filled in. And then you say company will be there, which is going to be find companies, which by the way isn't, maybe it's there, who knows? And it'll be there later. And then I've got a log in here. Oh look, there's a log. Hey, cool, that's why there's logging down here. Whatever. So you can see that's actually doing that now. I don't know why that's doing that. Let's just ignore that for now, but whatever. And then, it'd be really way better is to show you what the data looks like. Like, it works. You're like, great, you've given me no context, this is terrible. People, there are 3 people. All the names are extremely gender neutral. And then there are 2 companies, which there's Google and there's Patient Zero, which is who I work for. And you'll see that I've gone, cool, load the companies, load the people, filter people who have an employer, map through those, add the company based on find through the companies, make sure that their name and their employer matches up. Ta-da! Asynchronous result! Woo! Yeah, so the takeaway is that you'll be able to trade and lose money in cryptos. That's all. Oh, any questions?
I think I'll understand that eventually.
Yeah. I'll call back to you on that. Yeah.
So it's effectively the lazy functional programming language. You've made it pure lazy.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so I mean that was one of the things because the whole being able to take someone else's code and run it on your server, you inherently don't trust anything that comes to your server. I wanted to make it pure because I don't want to have massive memory leaks and whatever. So theoretically, this is really hard to do memory leaks in, but then again, I've been known to be impressive at making memory leaks in the past. So I guess we'll find out. I'm pretty sure you can destroy it really simply because there's stuff like I can go 1 to 2, which results in 1 and 2. That's pretty simple. What if I go infinity? It goes broken. I need to fix that one. Hopefully I fix that before I release my app and you guys sign up for it and crash my server because it does run on the server. But yeah. Yep.
How does it handle data dependencies? So it'll asynchronously resolve stuff.
Oh yeah.
And in parallel up until it gets to a point where it requires results.
Yes. So because it uses right out of the covers, all values are evaluated as they are required in the order that they are required in. It's inherent. So let's say I have, I don't know, let's just go load data people. What does that do? It doesn't. I've crashed the different. What the hell? Oh, .js, of course. Learn to write code. Yep, cool. So here's my people. And then I can square brace off that, the second one. Oh, the third one, sorry. Cool, there's the third one. Their employer is BZ. So I can then go like load data. What I have? I can go find over that where company. Did I get error?
Close the curly bracket.
Curly, yeah, thank you. Hey, cool. There you go. So now if you have a look in the network tab and I clear that out and I do a thing, because it just works on, it's not smart. Bam, bam, people see that there's a problem there, see that bug, which is that it doesn't remember people on the second load. So that's inside a, because this is happening inside a find, there are two companies, it loads people twice. But it does, and I mean, I realize that I'm trying to prove something good here, I'm proving how bad it is, but it does load companies and people in parallel. It loads people before it's loaded companies, even though it needs companies, but it just, yeah, whatever. So that's actually why in my original example, the reason why I loaded stuff twice, that's actually why I added an inner function, is because there's no variables in Fresh. You can effectively create like lexical variables, identifiers, values-bound identifiers by just grouping functions together, and you can just build a big list of data like that. So that way I'm only loading companies once down here, and it doesn't wait to run this. It actually runs that before companies is loaded, but I only have one reference to it, and because Rido is an eventual that returns the result, no matter how many times you ask for it, it's the same result, it only loads it once. Does that answer your question? I don't know. Yeah, cool. Yep. Good question.
What was the question, sorry?
What happens if shit doesn't work? What if you like load data? Yeah, that makes sense, that's people. What if you like load people there? Bang! I just haven't handled this very well, but let me get the code, that's probably a better way to look. Holy Jesus. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm using eval because I'm cool. Don't do that. Yeah, okay, so here you go. So the results of a fresh, so running, just slam that text content straight into an evaluator. Running that gives you a result, and it either has a direct error, so that's like it couldn't parse it, couldn't parse it. Evaluate, if it was like the very top level, maybe it would happen, but usually evaluate errors happen through the eventual. So the value will be a Rido, which is just an eventual or just a callback you can call, and you'll either get an error or results. Now I don't actually know why it's not passing that error. I do know exactly why, because I'm using it. Cool. So let's reload this, paste that there, and there you go, 404. So,
now for his next trick.
I get lost.
All right. Well, I for one look forward to writing Corey's script. I shouldn't laugh at that. Okay, next one. This is a really good lightning talk title. So we'll have Julian telling us about shitty estimates. No, I'm not even going to read out the rest of it because I think it's good to kind of explain.
How long that took to write down?
give it a round of applause, everyone.
If I play a movie through here, will it come out of the sound?
I don't know. I don't even know if there are speakers.
That's alright. We can knock it up if we have to, but
Just max the volume.
we have to pretend we're in a movie cinema. I'll just test it out.
No worries. I could use the microphone on
Yeah, we might do that.
Yeah, that's here. Plug that on.
Alrighty. Yeah, it's got HDMI there. So if I select that, okay, I'm just gonna give you guys like a little bit of Iron Man to kick this off. Is that coming out of the screen?
Look forward to your weapons presentation.
Oh, good. This is gonna work. Okay, so this is a fully fledged talk, but because it's a lightning talk, we're just gonna do like the reason that I built this project, and then I'm gonna give you the demo. And if you want the full thing, you can come to Tokyo Heads tomorrow night. So, the title of the talk, Bad Estimates, One Weekend Blew Out to 2.5 years and a Career Change. So, I'm very deaf, and when I go to the movies, I don't understand the movies very well, and so as a result, I rely on this really ugly and awkward device. I struggled to find pictures of people using this online, and these were the youngest ones that I found. There's a really good reason why only 60-year-old ladies use this thing. It is effectively a 4-foot-long dongle. Now, it's very dangerous in tech to make dongle jokes. It can end your career. But there's no way that a teenager would be seen dead carrying this thing in here. And what it does is it just plays the captions from the movie just up on a little personalized HUD, if you like. And I discovered this thing at the age of 30. I'd already gotten married, had 2 kids. There was no cool happening anymore, so I'm quite happy to walk up as a deaf person and ask for this thing and wait for the 5 minutes that they take to find it and stuff. But 4 years ago, 5 years ago, high school, there's no way I would have done this. So my idea was to get this thing smaller and then have it on a phone. It would make sense that this thing here, which is sort of really is, could be discrete. I was wondering how you would do that. So I was just still using it. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you the Star Wars flat dongle funny bank school night dummy spit story. This starts with the new Star Wars movie that's coming out, and me and my 6-year-old son had decided that we were going to see it, and I wanted to see it with captions so we could talk about it afterwards. We live on the north side of Middleton, and the only caption cinema I could find at the time that was playing this in a fortnight happened to be at Sunnybank at 8:30 on a school night. So I drove my son and woke him up after he'd fallen asleep at Sunnybank, took him into the cinema, tried to perk him up with excessive popcorn coke, and only to find that all of the dongles they had were fucking flat. So, and then we watched the movie. He fell asleep in 15 minutes, and I didn't really understand much of what was going on there. So I was just like, this is giving me a lot of impetus to fix this. And so this was my idea, basically. And I was going to skip through all of the tech stuff. And the drunken idea was conceived in October 2015. I successfully deployed and tested this thing about 2 weeks ago. Yay! You can see some of the milestones up here. So I actually went looking through to find all the different things of how long it had taken, and the empty repo that I never put anything into is still up there because I couldn't work out how to do anything else that afternoon. It is literally going from no coding whatsoever to I need to build an app. It can't take that long. To and then the first couple of months I was working on lots and lots of Swift stuff, and I got stuck into the Paul Hegarty lectures, and yeah, lots of object-oriented programming. And then around about 3 or 4 months in, I was just like, oh, I'm still really enjoying this. And I looked at how much devs got paid, and I looked at how much I got paid, and I decided to be a dev. And around that time I applied to ThoughtWorks, and then I started learning stuff like TDD, and I learned Java, and it wasn't until the next year in July and September that I really got stuck into servers and HTTP stuff and Dockers and, pseudoing environments with package managers on your machine and fucking it all up, and npm doesn't work anymore, and you just start all over again. So then, so my favorite learning milestones, the other reason it took such a long time to build this is because every time I discovered something I didn't know how to do, I just took my time with it and really enjoyed the process. So some of the cooler moments is when I was reading a book on operating systems, and I forked this little process into another process, and they were both writing to the same file. And then I looked at the file afterwards, and it was all gibberish because it was jumping between each different file, and I got so close down to the middle, and I thought that was really cool. also thought it was really interesting that Swift has this concept called optionals, which is like a null check sort of thing. And you open up the optional. Basically, it's just a concept of a type that has something in there, or may not have something in there. And that made it easier for me to understand promises in JavaScript. And promises, because I worked with them on a project for 3 months, allowed me to go back to Swift a while later and finish my project off, because the whole async problem was solved. I just really tackled that thing, and the whole idea of like passing a function into another function just wasn't so alien and unworkable anymore. And that arrow syntax is really sweet. So so much like clouds of vapor, you can evaporate water and it turns into a cloud. If you don't know how to configure AWS, it will take your bank balance and evaporate it likewise. They have these wonderful self-healing instances that if you forget about for a month. And single-heartedly, playground-driven development, Apple, as far as like total noob stuff goes, have this brilliant little continually running REPL, basically. So easiest way I could understand. I didn't understand what I was doing with it at the time, but it gave me such fast feedback to be able to try stuff out. And now they've got entire like ebooks that have the actual playground integrated with the textbook. And yeah, the kids coming up behind us, they're going to be much better than we are. Anyway, so.
Oh, that was perfect time.
Yeah, about half of you would have got that. So let's demo this thing. I'm going to, it's a bit of a shame because I can't really project it much further than that, but I've got it on an iPad up here. I'm going to play the movie. Oh, the movie's not okay. What's going on?
Can you drag it across to the second screen, maybe? Drag it to the right.
How about that? Oh, okay. There we go. But then I have to Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
You just said something I think that almost answers it. It's something like how Shazam works.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the cinemas synced their devices to their
They
captions.
just cheat and use Bluetooth and ask the movies for permission and stuff to like get the subtitles.
Right.
The big dongle thing is like proprietary and expensive. Yeah.
So you actually parse the voice.
Yeah, patch the audio from the movie.
Right.
And then it just, the API just returns like, you're listening to Iron Man, it's 480 seconds in, and then I wrote a player, and then it uses that. Yeah. There's actually quite a few different bits going there. Yeah.
Holy fuck, that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. Any more questions?
When did you launch it?
When am I going to launch it?
Did you say you already launched it?
No, I was just planning on using it for personal use, but I think it's kind of illegal the way that I use it. I think if I can work out, maybe partner with someone to like distribute the actual hash files, or somehow might have to meet some people from Ukraine or something. And we can get something working. I was talking to someone about it the other day. They said as long as you're not making money out of it, it should be fine. So there are other subtitle apps out there that are just like, I mean, the only one in Australia is available costs $12. I bought it just for research purposes. And it consists of you search for the subtitle that you want, and then it maps a little blue bar along the bottom, a slider control, and that maps to 1.5 hours worth of movie. And each pixel in about 30 seconds. So you can slide to synchronize the subtitles in a beautiful UI experience that's completely useless. So that's the alternative. I just wanted it to just work, and so that was the coolest thing I could come up with. But the actual the black box that does the matching was done by a very smart person somewhere else who did it as part of his PhD, and he did it to identify songs, but I was just like, oh, maybe I can take that concept and apply it to movies, and it took a really long time to work out how to do that. So, yeah.
So, do you usually have to wait a while before you can go and watch the movie? Like, is that
okay, so here's the thing. You can get the subtitles about a week after the movie comes out cinematically, because one day later it's available in China and Indonesia as a camera, and the audio quality doesn't matter that much. The only real problem you've got is if it's PAL or NTSC, and then you've got like about 5 minutes more movie. Like it's actually, I don't know if you realize this, but different formats means that you might have 5 minutes more movie. But I was playing around the other day, and if you stretch the file, it doesn't actually matter. So I was talking to someone at work, and he's just like, all you would need is like, I don't know, 30 seconds of audio, and you could work out which format it was, and then stretch it accordingly. Like it's something that could be solved. I just can't really be bothered solving it yet. So,
you can even do it later.
Sorry?
You can even do it later, as it happens with with video that
yeah.
quality of
or you could like, you don't really need the movie file. You could just, I mean, technically everyone goes into the movie with sound recorder in their pocket now. So getting the movie file isn't going to be that difficult. And assuming you have the right permissions from the device, you could actually get it from users too, whether or not they consent to doing so. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Alright. And that demonstrates why lightning talks are amazing, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm just going to thank everyone again. That's fantastic. Thank you also to Ash, who's been going around and very nicely, very kindly pestering everyone to do this. It's very, very good. That's what happens when a mic falls across your lectern. Yeah, again, thank you very much. Can we get another round of applause, please? That was great. And so thank you to Caitlin, to Kartik, to Corey, and Julian, and other speakers, Anna and Josh. So that's it. That's actually a wrap for the very first BrisJS for 2018, everyone. So you've done well. You've sat through it all. Thank you very much for coming here. We'll hopefully bring you a lot more awesome content next month, and start thinking about your lightning talks, because we're going to do this. We're going to do this almost every time. I'm going to say every time. If we can get enough talking, we can get enough speaking, we can try and do this every single time. So thanks again.